Good evening, Palace fans around the world. Welcome to the Red and Blue Review. My name is Jill Holyoke, and I'm standing in for Nick Philpott, who was dropped out tonight to go carol singing. Our panel tonight consists of home and away fan Ian Noble.
Evening, Jill. Good evening, everyone.
Aaron, who sounds like he's from home and away. And John Solarco, who played more than 200 times for Palace, home and away. It's a theme here, isn't it? Boom, boom. How you doing there? You all right?
I'm well, thank you, Jill. I'm very good. You okay?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Aaron, you all right? All the way down there in Melbourne, Australia?
Yeah, very well, mate. We've just got off the filming set of Home and Away, as you just said, mate. So, yeah, ready to come back to normality.
And our special guest tonight, John Solarco. Welcome, John. I know we've done a few bits and pieces. You've done a few bits and pieces for the Red and Blue Review, but welcome to a live show.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Good, good. So tonight we're going to discuss the 2-2 draw with Southampton, a game that promised loads from the outset, but produced a performance of if buts and maybes. Aaron, I'm going to come to you for some the lineup and stats in a second. Almost a frustrating game from our point of view, seeing as though we're blowing either hot and cold. But give us the lineup, mate, and the game stats, please.
Yeah, so with the lineup, I believe it was just one change, and you can obviously see it on the screen now, with Jack Butland in goal instead of Vicente Guaita. I'm not sure why that was. A few people said injury, maybe they for the previous game, but I'm sure we'll soon find out. And then, yeah, it was an unchanged lineup. At the back, you got Ward, Tompkins, Mark Gurhey, and Tyrick Mitchell. Through the middle, the same three again of Conor Gallagher, Will Hughes, and Cheku Kiate. Both boys playing out wide, Jordan Ayew and Wilfred Zaha. And up top, Odsonne Edouards. And, yeah, one change.
I can actually tell you that was. He
Jill,
actually
can I come in? Yeah. That's what I was going to say, John, as well. Yes.
Go on, in, John.
Vicente Guaita. Go on, John, you say. Go on.
Yes, so Guaita didn't play because he dislocated his finger. So he was still on the bench if needed be. But, I mean, it was heavily strapped. And obviously, Jack Butland, able assistant, came in. But I have to say, sort of being there at the game and watching the game, the Premier League is so unforgiving. And Jack coming in just sort of cold. You could see just then have that confidence to come and dominate his box, take things. And I do think the two strikes, I can't blame either of those on Jack, although on the night you sort of thought, and the weird thing is, Guaita's so good and he's so instinctive and natural that he makes saves that you don't expect him to make. And that's what the very, very top goalkeepers do. And, maybe he could have got to Broja's goal, but that came off the turf. It bounced in front of him. It was right in the corner. Great strike. Do you know what? In all honesty, I can't blame Jack for either of those goals. They were fantastic goals, but we took our foot off the gas and let them back into the game and their quality. They've got lots of good players, and I think they'll stay up easily. Love Hasenhüttl. I think they're a good team, but we gave them the opportunity and the platform to get back into the game.
Well, before we actually discuss it, Ian.
Yeah, you saw Vicente Guaita come over to the bench towards the end of the Everton game, didn't you, to get some treatment? And I thought at that time, at the end of that game, we hadn't used the 3 subs, and I thought he might even be going off, but he had some treatment at the end of that game. So that's what it was. It was that dislocated finger. Yeah. But John, I'm surprised that he was actually on the bench even. If he's dislocated his finger, then surely he's not fit to play at all. If Butland had got an injury in the first 10 minutes, what would have happened? Don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those gambles that you do take. I think it would have been his call, how he felt. I don't even know, maybe possibly could have had injection in that because that is really seriously painful. It would have been heavily strapped. It would have been great if he'd have had to come on. But, you take that gamble. I can remember playing back in the day when I went in goal for Nigel Martin. We didn't have but that was when you only had three. You only had 3 substitutes on the bench, but you did. You had to take that gamble whether you have a goalkeeper on the bench. I mean, how often does a keeper have to come on? But they've got to keep prepared. So I think that was a gamble well worth taking.
Maybe we'll come back to that later, that Nigel Martin moment when you went between the sticks. So we'll hear more about that later, maybe.
Just very quickly, Ian, before we go on, Ara can do this in throughout the show for us, but I'm just going to run through a few of the people in the chat at the moment. Nick Philpott thought he was carol singing. Gareth Thorndale, Phil Usher, Claire Davis, Luke Cooper, Daniel Garlick, Damien Toms, John Knox, Charlie Byrne, Tom Clark, Samuel, Mickey Philpott, Paul English, Mark Wills, Paul McNamara, Real Panny, Ian Appley, Andy Best, Dawn Palace, Fergus T, Georgia Wagwood, Gary Fisher, Matty Cannon, Teresa Baker. Teresa Baker, well done. Won a trip to Vegas. She won a poker tournament in a week and an all expenses trip to Vegas. I hope it was for 2, otherwise you're going to be Billy No Mates out there, and it is expensive. But yeah, Neil C, Paul Wilshire, to name but a few. So guys, Ian, the synopsis of the first half, just the first half, please, and then.
Okay, so look, we started very, very brightly, didn't we? We were on the front foot from the off, and it was a great first goal. We were all pinching ourselves. We couldn't quite believe how well we started. Will Hughes won the ball in the middle of the park. It was a tough tackle. It was legal. He fed, I think Ayew then got the ball fed Edouard, who played it wide to Wilf, who Wilf, weaved his magic. He did what Wilf does best. And I'd love to see Wilf do a bit more of this. In games, he used to do it so much more than he does currently. But it was a great strike, 1-0 on 2 minutes. And I think, as John said, we took our foot off the gas a little bit. Then, we did press a little bit more. We had a couple of other chances. There was the chance when Tompkins had a chance from a corner, which was sort of a bit of a half chance, which Willie Caballero saved. And then there was the chance where Wilf took the ball down the left, does what he does well, crossed the ball into the box for Edouard, who just put his shots just slightly wide of the far post. If that goes in 2-0, we probably win the game. But Southampton, they're resilient, and they got their free kick. It was a soft free kick. It was a foul in the end. At the time, I think Will Hughes was, he was quite vociferous to the fact that it wasn't a foul, but it was, and once the referee gives it, you're not going to change his mind. And we know what Ward Prowse can do, and he executed it brilliantly, didn't he? The free kick, and then they scored again shortly afterwards, and. Ironically, it was Gallagher who's been so good for us that lost possession in the middle of the park that led to that Brozier goal, and he sort of just chanced his arm, really, didn't he? And it was a bit of a daisy cutter initially along the turf, right in the corner. He couldn't have got it any, sweeter, really, in terms of a strike. And as John said earlier, you wouldn't really blame Butland for that. But in the ground, I'm saying to myself, does Vincente Guaita save that? Does he save it? And I was thinking, I'm not sure. When you watch it back, Butland's starting position wasn't great. He was towards the side. He wasn't central. And I think that's why he didn't quite cross. But we go in 2-1 down. And I thought it was a bit harsh, really. And when we've beaten Everton just 3 or 4 days before, you think, we don't need that. But, that's the first half, Joe. 2-1 down at the break. And we're all thinking, we need to do better. And interestingly, when we come out for the second half, and it wasn't just for this game, but we did the same against Everton. I think we did it at Old Trafford. We definitely did it at Leeds. We come out quite late. He keeps them in there for quite a long time. So the other team are out on the pitch for probably a minute or 2 before we, come out onto the pitch again. And obviously he's taking his time, Patrick Vieira, and, reading the right acts a little bit because we need to do something. We needed a reaction in the second half, which of course we got.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the sending the team out late as well. I mean, I'm sure that there are other players from the opposition and people hanging around near the changing room. And if he's having a ball and a shout at them, I think, you don't want anything these days. The slightest thing can be picked up if we make a tactical change. Someone hears it, they can just relay the information. I think a lot of I don't know. Again, it'll be a question to ask John in a minute about whether, the that if that is literally a tactic. I mean, I'm looking at some of the stuff just very, very quickly. Paul Bristow's come up with a stat. He said we missed one from last week versus Everton. Nathaniel Klein's late appearance for Tyrick Mitchell was his 200th Premier League appearance, which is a good stat back in the colours of Palace. But yeah, it's a source of frustration. But just quickly then, John, were you ever kept behind? Sent out late just to get instructions, so literally no one could hear, or is that a thing in football?
Very much so. I think it's just the way you feel. I think the emotions at the time. Sometime a manager will tell you to get out there early, or get the physio or the sports scientist to warm you up and make sure you're warm, ready for the second half, or otherwise, you'll say, right, hang back because he's got something to say, or he'll deliberately feel actually let them go out there, let them get a little bit cold. Let them go and sample that atmosphere, and we'll just stay in here. So yeah, that's the little tactic that I'm sure everyone's pulled and everyone uses every now and then. Not sure if it works or not, but it just mixes up the mind. I think sometimes you just need you need to do something slightly different. You just feel you need to shake it up.
A bit of football psychology.
Yeah.
A couple of people were saying in the chat that the referee had a bad game. I think what he did, he set a precedent earlier on by letting a few tackles go, some big tackles. The first one, I can't think that any of the top six that Will Hughes' challenge wouldn't have been a free kick. Honestly, it was thumping. It was not, football from 15 years ago. Fantastically big thumping tackle. And against City or Liverpool or any of the big teams where a player squeals like he's got a broken leg, there's a free kick there, and we don't get that chance. But I think the referee, he set a precedent, and he let us, there was a few free kicks, possibly red cards that he let go. From our point of view, again, it was a bad tackle was a bad tackle from Wilf on in the second half down the back of one of their down the back of Townsend's Achilles, and we were screaming about Wilf being targeted like that. It was quite bad. But anyway, like you say, he set a precedent, and it was a tough game. But we always struggle against Southampton. We rarely thumped them. The only time I've seen us thump them badly, you remember the 3-0 down at St Mary's? I think Mane come on, didn't he? It was his first game for Southampton, and we thumped them 3-0, I think. But I can't see us. But go on, hey.
There was a 4-1 when Scowcroft scored a hat-trick on the opening day. Do you remember that? Scowcroft hat-trick.
Scowcroft.
Scowcroft. He was, James was at the game.
Was he?
Yeah, on Wednesday. It's lovely to see him. I haven't seen him for a while.
He does, James Scowcroft does a lot of work for Radio London, I think. Definitely does a lot of work for the BBC for local teams. I know that. But yeah, anyway.
He does some scouting for the club as well.
Oh, that's good. Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Aaron, anything in the chat, mate, before we go on to the second half?
Yeah, no, there's a few things going on in the chat. Matty Cannon just saying Will Hughes challenging players, and yeah, damn right, he does put his foot in and sticks his neck in, and I think that's what we need him for, especially when James McArthur isn't there. Yeah, a lot of people saying good evening. Teresa was saying about postponing all the Premier League matches this weekend, which I know we said we'll get onto later on in the show. And Paul Bristow just saying about the away changing rooms aren't next to our own changing rooms. Talking about bringing obviously the players on a bit late. So yeah, don't know what you want to read into that, but I'm sure what John said is right. And yeah, a lot of people giving some love for James Scowcroft. So there we go.
Ian, second half, mate.
Yeah, well, we saw a reaction, didn't we? And, we came out and we had to do something. I think we were better in the second half. It was a very bold substitution and, it made a difference because when you take off, almost like a defensive midfielder in Kouyaté and bring on Benteke, it gave us something extra for the Southampton defence to think about. And when you look at the goal, they were both involved in it. in terms of occupying defenders in the box. And I thought Edouard did brilliantly, actually, to thread the ball through, force the save, and just delighted to see Jordan Ayew score. He's worked so hard in recent weeks, and he's had his critics, but he's worked really, really hard, and it was really good to see him get that goal. It was so similar to the one he missed at Old Trafford, actually, in terms of the angle. But he got us back on level terms, and then it really could have gone either way at the end, to be honest with you. Both teams had chances, and they had one right at the death, which they put over the top, and I was holding my breath. I thought, we can't lose this, And when you come back from behind in a game, it does feel more like a win, doesn't it, when you draw a game? Albeit that, if we looked at that game before we kicked off, we were targeting 3 points, especially after the Everton victory. But it's interesting that someone tweeted this, and I picked up on this tweet earlier in the week. It said there are 6 ways to have a 2-2 draw, and Palace have managed 4 of them before Christmas. So West Ham, they scored first and we equalised, then they scored and we equalised. Leicester scored 2, and then we got 2 back. Arsenal, they scored first, we got 2, they got 1 at the end. Then we scored first, Southampton scored twice, and they got 1 in the end. There's only 2 other ways to get a 2-2 draw. We've done 4 of them. That's pretty good, actually. I thought it was quite an interesting
fantastic stat.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, and we drew 3-3 at Burnley. Just put us down on the coupon as a score draw. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So I haven't got too much more to say about the second half. As I said, I had a Christmas do beforehand, so I'd had a few beers on Wednesday night, so I can't really remember too much more about it, and I've just watched the highlights back. But no, I think when you're behind, take the point, respect the point, and we weren't at our best on Wednesday night. I think it just felt a little bit like a game too far after the Everton victory. You've got to be able to respond, I suppose, in the Premier League. They know the games are coming. They know they're scheduled. He puts the same 10 outfield players that started at Everton out against Southampton. I thought he might have made a couple of changes, but he didn't. And the game just came. I just felt it was a game too far for us a little bit. I think had we made a few more changes, we might have had fresher legs that have, got us more out of the game. I don't know, but be interested to see what others think.
That's the mindset now because of the international coaches that we've got that have made the Premier League, especially the Premier League, more of a squad game. I mean, John, how do you see the changes for the better, or do you like to see a settled squad unless there's absolute injuries? I mean, you can look at Chelsea and Liverpool and Arsenal to a certain point. When they're playing in the FA Cup, they will make 11 changes. Do you see that's a good thing to bring some of the youth through, or even making 3 or 4 changes per league game? What's your thoughts that way?
Well, if you got 25 players, obviously the big teams have got a massive advantage, and that's simple as that. They have better squads, and they almost have 2 sides that they could play. And in any given one moment, it doesn't, it really isn't. He could, like a Guardiola or a Tuchel can play any of that squad, and they'll still have a fantastic side. We haven't got, quite that same quality of squad, although the squad is decent. And I think, that is the art of management, really, is, Ian alluded to, after a really tough game against Everton, the lads looked a little bit leggy, especially maybe James Tompkins, who's getting a little bit older, playing at the back. When Brozier went off, I thought, wow, okay, that's a blessing, because I thought he was causing us all sorts of problems. And, but they've got quality to come on. So, it's just been able to pull players in. Will Hughes has been fantastic. I think the 2 games he's played, he just showed his class, his experience. And he's got so much to offer because he can do both. He can win the ball, he can give it, he can get out the park, and he can score goals too, and he can create. So, real talent. So, with Milivojevic, Kouyaté, we've missed Maka. In midfield, we've got competition in there, and that's what you want. Not quite that competition wide. I thought it was a big game for Wilfred. He was quiet against Everton, and when he scored that goal, I thought, go and get a couple of goals, go and get maybe a hat-trick. The stage is set for him. Ayew keeps impressing me. sort of Benteke and Edouard dovetailing. So it was quite interesting that he took Chiarte off and kept Edouard on. He's got to drop in because, you know, it is always difficult because we've got to protect, you know, when we haven't got the ball, you've got to have players drop back in. We've got to get those numbers in. We can't just bomb forward and leave big spaces, which at times we did. So I think Patrick's got that little bit of a conundrum at the moment. He wants to play nice football. I think the only thing that I take away, you know, I was thinking on Wednesday, just once we put Benteke on against Everton, I thought he gave a little nice cameo appearance of just being aggressive and getting about the place and putting his body around. And that's what I want to see from Benteke. I'm sure we all do, you know. So, you know, last 10, 15 minutes, you know, we could have stuck it up on his head, boxed it in and really go and play up there. And again, I know Patrick wants to play at the back and we've got a certain philosophy and a certain way of playing that looks great. And he's the vogue right now. But that's finding that balance between sort of saying, you know, I would have said, you know, Anderson, it was great to see him back and he made a difference. He looked back, you know, you get Anderson and Gay back with Tyreek. I mean, Tyreek was my man of the match. You know, Wilfred, you know, he's fantastic. And Wardy was my man of the match against Everton. And the fullbacks did such intelligent, hard-working, sort of disciplined roles for the team. But, you know, I would have said last 10 minutes, especially against Southampton, stick it on Benteke's head, but, you know, get everyone across, get runners behind. And the other thing I just want to quickly mention is that I think with Wilfred, I think I was saying, and I saw it against Southampton, and I think Patrick's working on that. I want to see Wilfred gambling and going and opening his legs up, back and through. So if it's going up to Ayew, if it's going up to Benteke or Edouard, and it's coming back, you're going. Go, Wilf. Go, you know, go and find space wide or behind. And he started doing that. And I think a few Palace fans have said, oh, do you think Wilf's lost half a yard? And I think, no, he is. He's such a physical specimen. I just think he's stopped doing it. So he runs in 10, 15 yards. I mean, the goal was sensational and he's got that all day long. You know, go and twist the defenders up, you know, and get yourself a goal. Because once he gets into that box, you can't touch him. And he does get fouled. But, you know, sort of mix these games, sometimes come short, be available. But also, I mean, Tyreek seems to have this, he's a fantastic, he's got great vision and a good passer as well. And he sort of reads the game almost, he's almost one step ahead of Will a little bit. They should talk. And he'll say, look, if I'm coming short, you know, I'm going to go long. And if I'm going long, I'm going to come short. If I, you know, sort of come inside. So mix his game up a little bit so he keeps defenders guessing. But there's so many positives from what I'm seeing and how the lads are playing. And obviously, we just need Maka back. Obviously, Anderson back. I think Watford's off, isn't it? So I think next game's probably away at Boxing Day, Tottenham. You know, what a game that was today with Liverpool. I think it's one of the best games I've seen at 2-2. So, you know, Conte's got them firing. So that's not going to be easy. But then, you know, we've got Norwich at home and then West Ham at home. So really looking forward to those games. And, you know, if we can get to that 1st of Jan with 24 points, I mean, that, you know, I would say that would be, you know, that's amazing. And, you know, we're looking up then. We're looking forward.
You're saying about the amount of points. I'll come to you in a second. Sorry, mate. Saying about the amount of points that we've got. I think we're pretty much match for match. Same amount of points that we had last year. But the difference is, you know, we've had 3 2-2s, a 3-3. And this is the difference between you sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. I want 3-2, 4-3, 5-4. Honestly, I don't care. It's all about entertainment. We've not had many of those games over the last 4 years. We've had the consistency of being kept in with some pretty drab football. Effective, I'm going to say that because we're still in the Premier League for the 9th season. So, but now what we've got is the mixture of flair, younger players coming through with experience. And just going back to what you said, John, Tompkins, you know, not coming to the end of his career, but he isn't fast. And for me, he is a 75-minute player, because if he gets terrorised for a whole game like he did, we need to have someone like Anderson, well, not someone like Anderson needs to play, but it's good that we can have Tompkins to come on to play 15, 20, 30 minutes even to cover an injury at the back. The same way as we've got Macca. Now, Macca and Hughes, I mean, goodness me, I don't think we've ever had two players in the middle to kick the crap out of people, to be effective and disrupt the game. Because no matter what people say, that's what we've always wanted to have, that in the middle. Now we've got flair players. But the thing about Wilf now is, instead of, some of the other players coming on, instead of him having to take on 2 or 3 players all the time, the other teams are now having to take notice of our other players. And when Eze gets back, they're going to have to. And when Elise gets on his bike, we've got an unbelievable side to look forward to over the next 18 months. I really believe that. Aaron, going to need you to pick out some stuff in a minute. It's going to come to you in a second. Because what we're going to do, we're going to throw a load of questions over. If you want to ask John a question, then Aaron's going to read them out. But anyway, sorry, Ian.
Yeah, let me ask John a question then, because I want to talk more about Wilf. You touched on the fact that, people are saying maybe he's lost half a yard. I think sometimes it looks very much like that to me. And I scream for him to want to take people on. When he's one-on-one with a fullback, take him on, Wilf. Try and get past him and get the crossover. I know it's not as easy as just saying that. But I watched back on, I think it was on Twitter, it was 4 years since we beat Hull away. I don't know if you remember the goal he scored. He was on the right-hand side of the penalty area, and it was an absolute wonderful strike. He beat about 3 or 4 players and put it, right in the top corner. And I thought, crikey, what a brilliant goal. It was that season, I think it was 16-17, when we had the blue sash down the middle and the red kit. It wasn't really stripes at all. But, I don't know if you remember that goal, but that was on the right-hand side. And I remember him up at Burnley away scoring a similar goal from the right. My question to you, John, is would you like to see Wilf swap flanks a bit more? Given that we've got other players like Edouard and Ayew and Elise, we've got other options on the wing. Would you like to see Wilf have a freer role and swap flanks? Would that help, do you think?
No, yeah. I mean, great question. Yeah, absolutely. I think there was I think at the beginning of the season, we've seen Wilf play a little bit more central, maybe play off Benteke, play off Edouard, get that role. But the modern game is to play on their wrong side. So it was always Andros would play on the right and Wilf would play on the left. And, I sort of see that to a certain extent. But I think when they funnel you onto, your strong foot and you go into their strengths in midfield, I think you've got to be able to go out. So I would like to see Wilf play on the right as well as on the left and mix it up and give him a different proposition. Absolutely love Michael Elise. He's got absolutely everything. I think he's wonderful talent, great touch, great vision, his movement, his intelligence, great pace. He just needs to progress. And I think the only thing Patrick's waiting for is just to be able to, again, you got to be able to trust players. When he hasn't got the ball, can he get back in? Ayew does such a wonderful job. Ayew's such a bright, intelligent, trustworthy player, and that it goes a long way. As you say, there's the two sides of it. He does great when we've got the ball, but when we haven't, he tucks back in and gets into great spaces and he defends really well. So I think for Elise, if I was speaking to him, I'd be saying working on when he hasn't got the ball and getting into a good shape, getting into good positions, and then going and doing his damage, because he is going to be an absolute talent. And as you just said, Joe, Eze back, he's given Patrick some incredible options of players that can get on play. But obviously, it's that solidity of trying to keep some clean sheets. I think going that way, it's all looking very exciting.
Aaron, in a second, have a flick through the questions. Matty Cannon said, we have some awesome talent sitting on the bench and coming through too. It's a great feeling knowing you're not desperate in the next transfer window. And that's what we've always been wanting, to sign another player, sign this person, sign that person. And then what we've done, the chairman of, we needed a really decent defender. So they splashed out, the best part of 30 million on Sacco. We needed a genuine forward. So they splashed out the same thing, massive money on Benteke. I think those days for us are gone, thankfully. But the talent that we've brought through, taking the best player at the Championship with Eze 2 years ago, at the Championship last year with Elise, if that, how on earth we are managing to get those players ahead of, especially Eze. Everyone's seen what he can do just before his injury. How on earth Arsenal and the like are not jumping in front of us? I never know. It must be a great feeling for our guys behind the scenes to know that they've got a chance when they meet with these players and their agents, that they are promised that they're going to play rather than be a squad player. I think that has to be the only thing. I think the appeal, and also we're matching money. I'm sure. But anyway, Aaron, I've held you up for ages. Questions for John?
Yeah, there's a lot of love for John in the chat. You're a Crystal Palace legend, John. That's what everyone's saying. So, apparently it's well matched with the halo above your head, which Nick commented on. However, Nick needs to get back to singing some Christmas carols and let us do what we're doing, eh? Yeah, there's quite a few questions here for John. I'll try to get through all of them as best as I can. A good one that I did pick out, which was actually from Nick, John, is how do you think Palace are going to cope when obviously I think, is it 3 or 4 players go to the African Cup of Nations if it goes ahead? Obviously, do you reckon we've got the squad depth to cover that?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's always going to hit the likes of Palace harder when you lose your quality players. Obviously, if Wilf goes, AU goes, and plays like that. So quality players in your squad. And it comes at such an awful time as well. They've really got to sort it out. I don't know if they'll ever be able to make it a summer tournament. It is difficult, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, it will hit that Palace without a doubt. But that's where obviously need to get some points on the board so that we're well protected.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a very controversial one, I must say, because we talk about it a lot as Crystal Palace fans. I can't actually remember, so sorry to the person that did ask it. I can't see their name. But do you think Palace need to go all out and sign Conor Gallagher? Because it's a question on everyone's lips, as we know.
Oh my God! We've had some. I saw a poll. I don't know, Ian, you might have been involved with this, but
yeah,
you sort of think of your Ashley Cole's come in and. Who was the centre midfield player we had from Chelsea last year? Who's gone off to
Ruben Loftus-Cheek.
Yeah, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and you sort of look at players that have come on loan, but Conor Gallagher is such a breath of fresh air. He is so vibrant. He is so intelligent. He is so brilliant, and he's such a lovely lad. It's just so brilliant, and we'd all love to sign him. We'll sign him tomorrow. He's like a little, he's very similar to Mason Mount in a lot of ways, but I love the fact that he plays with a smile on his face. You can just see the lad just loves everything about what he's doing and where he's at, and he just wants to go and make things happen. And he sees great pictures. He's on that second foot. The third man runs into the box. He's always anticipating where it's going to drop. And again, it's probably something maybe Wilf and Elise and Eze could pick up on. It's just that hunting the ball down and that running forward, and then just thinking, right, where is that ball dropping? What can I be that second, third man joining in and making those clever little runs into the box and in and around. So, wow, yeah, love to sign Conor Gallagher. I think he's just, where you sort of think, where will he fit into the Chelsea outfit at the moment? I don't even think they're thinking about it. I think just leave him here for a year, maybe leave him for another year. But going back to that, as they come in or Elise come in, they know they're going to get games. They know they're going to play, and they're going to play. They're going to get an opportunity. We always get plenty of press. We always get plenty of coverage. It's a lovely place to be. South London, play at Selhurst Park, great atmosphere. So there is no reason why kids don't want to sign anymore. And now we've got that new facility, Copers Cope Road, with the youth facility. It's just sensational. So. For the kids coming through, I know that there's some. Don't say too much about them, but I think we've got 2 or 3 really special players coming through the ranks as it stands, and I think in the next 4 or 5 years we're just going to produce more of those. So, it is disappointing with the African Cup of Nations, but it is what it is. So I think everyone's in that same boat. And it is a consideration when you're signing players, unfortunately. It has to be.
Well, I think if Jordan Ayew goes, Michael Elise fits in his place. Edouard, is he going?
French. No,
he's French. He plays for France.
Yeah. So I think I'm pretty sure we've got cover for those players. Going back to Gallagher, I think there's a huge advantage that we've got, as in Gay has been his best friend for ages. I'm sure they go back years and years. I'm sure that would have been a good part of what of him coming to Selhurst Park. Obviously, when Mark signed full time and Connor comes. But I just want to very, very quickly go back to the Southampton game, and I talked to Nick about it this afternoon. And very funny, Ryan. Anyway, but did anybody pick up on Wilf and I call him Rat Boy? It's a terrible thing. The Southampton player we all hate.
Ward-Prowse.
Did you see them hugging at the end of the game and talking? Proper. Everyone's missed it. If you can watch it back, it wasn't a high five, a punch, or whatever. It was hugs, stop, talk, and gone. It was. I thought that was a big moment. It was a big moment for both of those players, because obviously our fans booed Ward-Prowse, their fans booed Wilf, and at the very end of it, I was like, do you know what? We've. It's obvious they've got over it. So but I thought that was a really important. But also at the end of the game, the camera was on Gay and Gallagher, and you could they were loving life at that second. I'm telling you, I hugely think that if we put, how much do you think, John? How much do you think he costs us? How much do we go to Chelsea and say? Do we go there and say, here's Wilf as a swap?
No. Daft.
Oh, dear me.
How much does he cost us?
I haven't got a clue. I mean, obviously, look, you can throw a number up in the air. The boy has been fantastic. He has, obviously made his England debut. He looks perfectly comfortable at that level. So plenty of people will be courting him, will be looking at him. It's just what's in his heart. He wants to play. He wants to play at Palace. I think as a youngster, you need to play. Are you going to go back to Chelsea? Are you going to play? How much football are you going to get? Do you want to go to somewhere else? It's going to come down to those sort of things. So I think, Conor Gallagher's easily going to probably, you're talking about, 25, 30 million, maybe even more. The way he's going, if he, scoring goals from midfield, he just does everything. I think he can play as the 8, he can play as a 10. And I think he's growing. Whatever you throw at him, I think he can adapt to. So, he's going to be courted. And I think if we can finish sort of in around that mid to top half of the table, I think that is going to be a massive, massive part of whether he signs or not.
Yeah. Ian?
Yeah, I think it will be down to the individual at the end of the day. Yes, he's grown up as a Chelsea fan. He's never really played for Chelsea, but clearly he's loving his football at the moment. Not only is he a good footballer, he's an articulate lad as well. You see him interviewed after the Everton game. And I think if he's enjoying his football that much, and we make an offer to Chelsea in the region of the kind of numbers people are putting in the chat there, 30, 35, 40 million, and then maybe there's a buyback clause as well, then, he'll say, yeah, I'll sign because, I'm enjoying my football. I'm playing first team football. I've got a chance to play for England whilst I'm playing for Crystal Palace. Certainly if he goes to the World Cup, which is a possibility as well, although that decision will be made after the start of next season. So that's probably a stupid argument. But, nevertheless, I think it'll be down to the lad himself at the end of the day, whether he signs for us or whether he goes back to Chelsea. I'd like to think that if he's going to sign for anyone, it's us and no one else. I think Villa have got a bit of interest, but, let's hope that he wants to stay in South London if he goes anywhere. Yeah,
no, that's a good point. Aaron, again, I'm gonna fire off some questions to John. Keep an eye on the chat. Obviously, this is now open season for the chat. So, John, 3 Wembley appearances for us, 2 cup finals and a ZDS being the one that you scored a couple of goals. And the reason I bring this up is that we've just done an amazing 2-part we've done an interview with Steve Coppell. We sat down at Nick's house. Nick's the usual host. I know you've met Nick before, the usual host for this show. But we sat down thinking we were going to nick 25, 30 minutes off of Steve Coppell around at Nick's house. And he was there for 3.5 hours. And we had 50 questions lined up for him. And we asked 15. And we told him that. And he said, well, I'll come back then. So he's off to Singapore to celebrate the birth of his future grandson. His son lives out there. And so we look forward to meeting Steve again. But you played under him, and obviously he's talked about you guys. We covered in depth the team that he had, but what we haven't had is a perspective from the other side of being mentored by someone that's come down and played in cup finals and played in Europe and been a huge successful England international. What's it like to play under someone that's been there, seen it, done it?
Yes, Steve was one of my heroes. Obviously watching Steve play for United and play for England, he was sensational. He was fantastic, and really, it was really weird. Obviously, he getting the knee injury and then sort of having to retire from football. The next minute, he's arriving at Mitcham, taking over as Palace manager, was just surreal. He's
seriously. So when he turned up, did you know he was coming? And then did you know he was coming?
No, so we don't get told. But I was so obviously I was just signing. One of the first things Steve did was sign me as an apprentice. So I signed as an apprentice. So I didn't really deal with Steve to start with. So Steve arrived. So they're over there, the first team. And obviously you speak to him, and Steve was incredible. But Steve's a man of very few words, and he would come up, obviously introduced himself at training, and just I think one of the first things he said to me, he says, "Well, how many keep you up can you do both feet?" And I was like, I was very, very left-footed at the time, and so I was trying it, and I couldn't do very many. And that literally was one of the first things he said was, "Look, if you can do like 100 in 2 weeks' time or something, he would, I don't know if it was money or he would do something." So he set me a target. But he made me conscious of working on my right foot. So I started working on my right foot and left foot. And that's really the massive thing he brought to me was, 1, getting wide, 2, being 2-footed, so I could cross left foot and right foot. Because he was saying you don't have to beat the player. And that's really with righty and righty. And that, sort of talking. Steve was fantastic, and he was the best manager I worked with because he was just so simple. He just understood players. His man management was superb. And I was talking to someone the other day. I was saying, I think it was 91. I needed 2 goals in the last game against Man United at Selhurst Park to get my goal bonus, and I was shooting from everywhere. And righty and righty were going. And anyone, all the guys, you guys who've watched it over the years, righty and righty could tear a strip off anyone, and they used to give it us. They were fierce. And amazingly, I got my 2 goals, and I don't think Mark Bright had talked to me for about 2 months, but Righty came up and congratulated me afterwards. But funny enough, talking about man management, so Steve comes to me in the summer to obviously diffuse his big boys. So he decided, what we're going to do, John? We're going to have a goal bonus, but it's going to have assists and goal bonus. So you don't have to score goals; you can assist, and you'll. And how did I fall for that? How did I? It's genius. It's like, obviously they've got to keep Mark Ian happy and keep me happy. So that's what he did. But that was Dave, very intelligent guy, great, tactically incredible. When you look at you talk about Wembley finals, the semi-final against Liverpool, the tactical setup for that, setting us up, and then going into the Saturday, and then it changed for the Thursday, and obviously the Zenith against a very, very good Everton side. tactically we were set up. We played to our strengths. We had great talent. We were very fit, very strong, and he was amazing. And it's always a pleasure to catch up with Steve.
You sound about left foot, right foot. It's quite strange because I was having to do a little bit of Google homework on you just to make sure I got things right. But the 35-yarder against Forest was your right foot.
That was at least 45 yards, by the way.
Well, I mean, it said 40, but when I looked at it, I'm giving 30. I'm back 37. But
yeah, the one.
Do you remember that series?
Inside Keane and
cross.
Yeah, no.
Yes, yeah.
That is my favourite goal. Actually, that was.
Do you remember that series of games where we went up there 3 times in 10 days? I think it was one where it got called up through fog, then one when we did play it and you could hardly see the other end. I went to all 3 of those games. It was the maddest thing. 28 of us there was in the away end. It was a great. Aaron,
such a tough place to go.
Yeah, well, especially when you're up against Des Walker as well. Aaron, what we got in the chat, mate?
Just more love for John. Crystal Palace legend still, mate, so keep it going. Teresa Baker makes an interesting point. She says she was there at that game, the 4-1, and she remembers seeing Neville Southall sitting in his goal, refusing to get his loser's medal.
Yes.
So there you go. There's one. And Matty Cannon as well. What a team it was back then with Wrighty, Brighty, John, Thomas, Shaw. And he said Steve Coppell days were the best days. And the real panel, actually, John, gives you 50 yards. So it's creeping up, mate. It's creeping up. Don't listen to Gel, mate. He obviously doesn't know his measurements. So,
John, I asked this. Yeah,
the City ground is a big pitch, I have to say. So, don't be fooled, mate. Just inside that halfway line.
39 yards. You ain't getting 40 out of me. Just really, I asked this question to Steve, and so in '90 we finished 3rd in the first division, and everyone's thinking Europe. From a player's point of view, how disappointed were you to think that you were going to play in the European Cup or to play in Europe and then to be denied? From a player's perspective, did that hurt?
We were absolutely devastated because obviously, Liverpool had the Heysel Stadium situation. They'd been banned from Europe and they finished 2nd that year. So if you look at the ramifications of that, really, in a sense, where they obviously sat down and decided to let Liverpool back in, I mean, it would have been absolutely incredible for us. So we don't get to Europe. Wrighty ends up going, and I say, that year Leeds finished 4th, and they signed Dirigo, Cantona, and Wallace, and they won it the year after. They won the league. I think Wrighty had gone in and said, "Look, if we strengthen the squad, I'll stay." But look, obviously once Arsenal come knocking on the door, it's very hard for Wrighty to turn that down, regardless of who he signed. They didn't, we didn't really sign anyone. I think we signed Marco Gabardini. Wrighty went, which was just, which was even more heartbreaking, really, is not making Europe because, that team was so ambitious. It was, so driven, so confident, so. We were all ready to take on every challenge, and that just would have been another wonderful challenge to go and play in Europe. And I think we would have done well. But unfortunately,
that was going to be my next question. Hypothetically, how do you think honestly that we would have done? Do you think we would have done that? Because I thought we would have. We had the pace we had would have worried anyone.
Oh, without a doubt, the power and the strength that team had. We had everything. And I think with Stevie's tactical knowledge and the way the team was set up, Andy Gray and Jeff in midfield were as good as anyone. I mean, Jeff was a proper, box to box. He's still riding Tour de France. Is that Jeff? He's had the biggest engine. Andy Gray was phenomenal, could play. Then the fullbacks, the centre halves, Nigel Martin's I just think he's the best goalkeeper. Seriously, that I work with and probably beyond and better than that. And right in Brighty would could play for anyone up front. So we had a squad. We just needed to maybe just strengthen that a little bit more in depth wise. But for a starting 11, it was pretty cool. But as I say, I think from a mental strength point of view and a focus and a drive, that team would have, gone into Europe and had a right good go.
Ian?
Yeah. Someone asked a question earlier, and this is a really tough one to answer, John, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Out of the current squad of Palace players, which 2 or 3 get straight into that 1991 team?
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Say none.
I'd have to say that Wilf would get in on the right, but not instead of me. We could dovetail. I could be his Andros Townsend. Do you know what I mean? But Eddie, Eddie, I loved it. Eddie was fantastic. But I would have to say Wilf would get in, and I think Wilf would enjoy playing in that side. Joel Ward get ahead of Townsend. I think. Oh, sorry, against Pemberton. Sorry, Joel Ward.
Yeah,
get ahead of Pembo. You'd like, I don't know. Give me, Yeah. So who else is there? I love the start that Gay and Anderson have made. Guaitip wouldn't get ahead of that. Yeah. So up front.
No. Yeah. I think the keepers change. Nigel Martin for Guaita. I'm sorry, it's the best goalkeeper I've ever seen. Nigel Martin.
Would you change them?
It's the best goalkeeper I've ever seen. I'm just saying this. Oh yeah, sorry, no, I wouldn't change. I wouldn't put Guaita in for Martin. He's the best keeper I've ever seen.
Oh no, yeah. I'm saying Nigel would be in there.
Yeah,
I'm not. I mean, it's one of those ones where you're always sentimental towards your own time, and I think the fantastic thing is now I think there's 4 or 5 players like your Elise stars, and I think you guys Anderson's, that could go on to be absolute superstars and be in that bracket and absolutely be, Palace legends.
Best player you ever played against?
I was very fortunate to play against the unified German side at Wembley, and Lothar Matthäus was rather impressive.
That is some cool. That is, wow.
Yeah, I tried to get his shirt, and Gary Lineker had copped it. I was gutted. But I've got Andres Mola's shirt, which I've framed, and it's got a pride of place. But for me, I think that German side, but they were the world champions. I think they won it in Italy in '90, didn't they? And then I got in just after that, played them at Wembley. But Gazza's the best player I ever came across. Just an absolute. He is right up there. He's with the George Best, the Maradonas for me, and the Pelés. Just a shame. He didn't get to play a little bit more, as we didn't get to see enough of George Best, but. At club level, I sometimes think about that. Wrighty is just, phenomenal. What he did and how he progressed and what he went on to do at Arsenal, but just incredible. Very lucky enough to play with some top players, but
Did you know Rocky when he was a youngster?
No, so I would have met him with Wrighty, but no. I think the 2 players that, my 2 probably favourite players are Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp. So, that Wrighty connection, that Arsenal connection, but it's very weird, really. I think some of the players I loved were people like David Ginola and Mark Walters. I actually shared a room with Mark Walters, and he was one of the most gifted players just ever. I thought, he played for Rangers Liverpool. He had a great, really good career, top lad. So, it's just, the game's changed so much. I mean, when I came through, you had Barnes, Waddle, Mark Walters, Sinton, and to be fair, I don't know. I assume the only thing I would have done back then is just go, well, I don't care what they're doing. I'm just going to go and do what I'm doing. So I think certainly going to Anfield, going to Old Trafford, or going to Highbury and places like that, you just got to have the belief that you're good enough, and they've got 2 legs and 2 arms, and why they're any better than us, and you go and do the best you can. And we were never intimidated, especially right a bit at the front of that bus, going, "Come on, let's go and have it." And then but we have to against Millwall and Brighton in the next couple of weeks in early Jan. So.
Did you play in the 9-0?
No. Nothing to do with me. It is actually quite a funny story, that one, in the sense where Ian Evans had moved and became Swansea manager. And he rang up to take me on loan to Swansea. And Swansea had won the Welsh Cup. So they were in Europe. So I was away playing in Panathinaikos in Athens for Swansea. And and I can remember the lads, like your Chris Coleman's, Kit Simons and Andy Melville's, sort of having a laugh and a joke, sort of saying Palace got beat 9-0. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that didn't happen. And it was the back of the sun. It was like, and you watch the highlights and that really was, that was the catalyst. I think Nigel Martin then came in as £1 million goalkeeper. I think we signed Andy Thorne. Richard Shaw was away at Hull. He came back. I came back. And the side changed, I think. And Eric Young came. And then obviously, the semi-final in Villa Park happens, which is just crazy, isn't it? You go from 9-0 to winning 4-3 in the semi-final. And that was the change in the guard for Liverpool. Which is crazy, really. I still have that conversation with Sir Alex when he talks about, Liverpool won the league title.
Name dropping now, are you?
Yeah, no, I'll pick that.
Do you play golf?
I do. Love my golf.
Yeah, no, because golf seems to be, for your era, seems to be huge. Steve Coppell loves playing golf. Sir Alex plays golf. I know Crouch is into golf and loads of ex-players. Is that you meet Sir Alex quite a lot?
Yeah, just big functions in London or on the circuit. We certainly haven't played golf together, but Righty loves his golf, Brighty loves his golf. I think it's hit and miss, really, the lads who do, but I would say maybe half the lads do. But when it gets you that golf bug, and it's a great one, but for the lads, they've just got to take a buggy. But we didn't really play a lot of golf back then. It's sort of something you do when you get a little bit older. So it's a great thing to catch up with the lads and have a hit. So I do love golf. Just fair weather golfer.
Aaron, scan the questions. I'm just going to read one out. Best away stadium.
Highbury was the iconic stadium for me. Anfield was always the stadium you saw when you walked down. You touched the cockroach as you walk down the stairs, and Old Trafford is just immense. The whole coach goes into the stadium and you get off, and those are always intimidating stadiums. Obviously, I mean, old Wembley was very special, but yeah, old Highbury was the stadium. But I mean, I've just been, I've been to the new Tottenham Stadium, and haven't been to the Emirates, and then to the new Tottenham Stadium. That is just seriously, it's on a different planet. That is illegal. That's just too nice.
Aaron, questions? Quick fire ones.
I've got one from Matty Cannon. Do you think we have the characters in the dressing room now like we did in the 90s?
I would say not quite, but there's some really nice characters. I mean, Maka's a winner, Milivojevic is a winner. I like Anderson and Gay, what they're about, their temperament, their attitude. Guita is a winner. Wardy, sensational. Just a great character. He's brilliant. And, Wilf's a winner. And, they all demand of each other. I mean, Wilf, I saw him in an interview the other day. He demands a lot of himself and he demands a lot of everyone else. So that's what you need. You need everyone demanding and wanting, not just in training and games. And that's what will improve you and ultimately get you success.
Yeah, Teresa Baker said, sorry, mate. Sorry, Aaron. I'll go, then you can go after. Teresa Baker said, if you hadn't been a footballer, what would you have done?
I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to be in the army, SAS. And then I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And then, they came and did this presentation at the school, and they said, you need, maths and physics and computers. And my three were so
I'll just be a footballer then.
I was like, I mean, to be honest, he's very lucky. I mean, I just always played sport, always dreamt about playing, but I'm sure, there's a very big wide world out there, and would have gravitated something. But yeah, very special and very lucky to have played.
Okay, we'll have a few more questions. Aaron, pick one out, mate.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to look at this one here. I can't see the name again, but someone asked John, which I think is a good point. How do you think Palace will do this season and going forward as well, with obviously the mix of the youth coming in, with the experienced players? I mean, we'd all love to know that. What your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, do you know what? It was a really mixed bag with Patrick, because I think Patrick came out of nowhere. I thought, Eddie Howe was coming. I thought Sean Dyche was coming. We thought Frank Lampard was coming. We thought Nuno Espirito. I did a thing on Talk Sport, saying, Nuno's signing. Nuno's here. I'm like, great. And then all of a sudden, Patrick came, and everyone's like, oh, not sure about that. New York, France. But Patrick's been a breath of fresh air. So I think with the academy, with the young players we've got coming through, with the players we've signed, as you say, like Eze and Elise and, Edouard, and, the way Patrick's playing, and I think he's just the man management. He's got a great philosophy. It's great to watch again, the atmosphere. So I think with the backing we've got, I think the future is really bright. So, do you know what? I think if we can finish anywhere around that 10th, 11th, I think I'll take that all day long. I think that's fantastic. And the future is really bright. We just got to keep adding. Maybe in January, maybe add one more. You've always, in the Premier, you've got to keep moving on. So keep identifying those Elises, those Ezes, and that's going to create a conveyor belt and a continuity that will work.
Ian?
Yeah. John, you touched on this a couple of times, talked about the academy. And, we've seen players like Ruben Loftus-Cheek go to Chelsea. We've seen players like Emil Smith-Rowe go to Arsenal when they're South London boys. And, had we had that Category 1 academy when they were coming through, maybe they would be playing for Crystal Palace now. What impressed you most? You were at the opening of the academy, I saw, with the great and good of Crystal Palace. What impressed you most about the academy, and what should we be excited about?
Everything. I mean, it is a state-of-the-art, world-class facility that is as good as anywhere. We've got a full-size indoor arena, just the facilities from the education side as well, because there's so many kids coming into football now. They need to be getting their education. They need to be rounded. But the facilities for a player, I mean, I'm not name-dropping again, but funny enough, I mean, I was the first player to come through the Palace Academy to play for England, and I was talking to the second one, who was Gareth Southgate. He's done rather well, isn't he?
Yes, he has, hasn't he? Yeah.
So proud of Gareth. But Ian, we were having a laugh. We were saying, we came through at Mitcham. It was a proper, tip. There was no facilities. There was, the pitches were boggy in the winter, hard in the summer. Really hot water. There was nothing. There was no sports science or anything, and really to find our way through it. And Gareth, you can spoil kids, but I mean the facility is sensational, because they've still got to realise the harshness and the intensity of what they've got to bring, and the cutthroatness and the ruthlessness of the game in itself. So, they turn up, I did the 13s and the 16s, and we used to be up at the Palace running track, the stadium up at Crystal Palace. And it was just not fit for purpose. And we lost so many players to Fulham, to Chelsea, to Charlton, to Reading, to West Ham, because of the facilities were just so poor. And without a doubt, what you just said, we are now in a position to retain players, because there's no argument. Because I say to parents, why are you going to drive all that way? We think it's better, John. We're going to get better facilities, better training, better coaching. The one thing we've always had is that you will get a game here. So you will, if you're Klein, if you're Moses, if you're Bostock, if you're Zaha, if you're Wardy, you'll get a chance. And that still applies. But now we've got facilities, and we haven't got backers that can go and spend 50, 60 million a pop. But what we have got is the richest catchment area. Now we've got a facility to match it. And, with the guys down there talking to Sean Derry and McCarthy and Dougie Friedman, and, the work that Steve Parish has done behind the scenes with Brighty and the guys is just been phenomenal. It's been it's been building blocks, and it's been a work in progress. And now that's bearing fruit. And we do actually have this world-class academy now that is going to it will produce world-class players. And we're going to be selling, like a Nathaniel Klein, they move on maybe, but as we grow, we'll be able to keep some of them. But, come and play 100, 200 games for us and then go for, like, Aaron Bissaka, he only played 42 games and went for 50 million. That we are going to have to still live there for a while, but hopefully we'll retain enough quality that will take us where we want to be.
I'm glad you said that, because I said that I thought we are and probably always will be a selling club, and got slaughtered for it. But just a couple of quick things. Your mate and ours, Gareth Southgate, has just won the coach sports personality of the year. I look at Phil Pot, he's stuck in. Look at him, look. So Aaron, hang on, Aaron, because we've indulged. I want you to ask John a question as well. But yeah, I mean, just going back, Fergus Tid said, "I love the way Patrick talks about the club and the journey we are on, and bats away questions directly just at him. He seems to understand the Palace values and the fans," which is a really valued, really good point. It's a very well thought out point. But Aaron, because we are now getting a little bit short on time. Question time for you, mate. Your personal question to John.
I mean, to be fair, I think it's mostly what probably I asked last time. I mean, my thoughts, I just wanted to ask John was like, how do you think, like, Patrick Vieira? I mean, I'm so, I'm like in awe, because I mean, like everyone said, like the last 4 or 5 seasons for me, it's been so hard to watch, John. So hard to watch. But I mean, for me, my question as a manager, because I mean, what we said is, I thought Nuno was coming to the club. I remember watching and listening to you on TalkSport actually regarding that. And do you think, for example, if we did get Nuno in, because you look at what happened at Tottenham, was we going to go back to playing the way Hodgson was? Because that's the type of manager Nuno is, right? And now, obviously, with Vieira, we've got this great style of football, which, I mean, for me as a fan, I absolutely love it. I'm in absolute awe at the moment.
Do you know what? I think Nuno gets a bad rap, because I think what he's done with the youngsters, Dendoncker, Jimenez, Neves, Moutinho, the way they've played, Traore, he's created a lot of those Neto, those youngsters there. I actually thought that he might be a nice fit for Palace, because he knows Europe really well and he knows youngsters. And he's got a certain philosophy. He can play the 4, he can play a back 5. I genuinely thought, and he's a strong character, so I thought Nuno could have been a good fit. Patrick's just really grown and all. He's an absolute legend of a player. He's got a great character. He's got lovely charisma. I love the way he speaks, the way he's sort of unassuming and he plays things down. But I know behind the scenes, the players absolutely love him, want to play for him, and that's the balance between playing open, good entertaining football and winning games. So, with Roy, he had a certain philosophy. He knew what he had, and he worked a certain way, and he kept us in the Premier League. And that had its own merits. But it's very brave of Stephen Martin Long to go back to that after the Frank de Boer thing. But it wasn't a case that was a massive mistake. It just didn't work at the time.
Yeah.
So, and I think Steve Parish and Martin Long are very brave, and those conversations we're having with Dougie Friedman and sitting there going, we're going to go back to that, because we know that's where we need to be to progress. And you want someone who's got an international view, someone who can go into Man City, can go into Chelsea, can go into the top clubs and go, can we have a player on loan? Or do you want to buy, or do you want to sign for me? And when Patrick does that, he will hold that kind of respect of, wow, yeah, Patrick Vieira. He's got my attention straight away. So I think Patrick's growing now and he's learning, and it's just great. So we shouldn't get too carried away, because again, he wins a few games, everyone talks about it, then we lose the 3 games we lost, and you suddenly think, going into the Everton game under pressure, haven't beaten them at home for 14 years. You're like, oh, then but we've got 4 points. So it's just keep a realistic, keeping our feet on the ground, and I think we've got an absolute gem in charge.
I think with Nuno, just going back, sorry, Nick, I'll let you come in a sec, because you're not hosting tonight, so you can wait. With Nuno, I mean, he was backed. I know he was backed by the ball, but he did have George Mendes picking up all that talent for him, and that helps. I mean, that to have a super agent on your books was really advantageous for Wolves. But I've got a mate who's a Wolves fan, a huge Wolves fan, season ticket holder. He lives just a mile from me, but he's up there all the time. And he said to me, probably 2-3 years before they came up, he went, watch us go. He said, and hopefully we can stay and do a Palace, stay in the Premier League, and then we'll go on from there, because he said the stadium, the facilities, the money and everything is there. But anyway, Nick, welcome to the show, mate. I told you you've been out carol singing today.
Yes, I heard it. And I heard Aaron reiterate it. Boys, good evening to you all. Hello to everybody out in Facebook land. I'm just jumping on to say, as a punter tonight and not as a show host, can I tell you what a real pleasure it was to watch this evening. John, thank you so much for coming back on again. Your knowledge is just supreme. And boys, it was a real good, entertaining last hour. So thank you very much. And Jill, thank you for sitting in with me tonight.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you, John.
Right,
I'm going to leave you guys to it. I wish you all a happy Christmas. Bye all.
Thank you.
See you, mate.
I'm going to wrap it up in a minute, but just very, very quickly, because we were, just before you joined us, John, we were talking about COVID and a situation that we might find ourselves in. People were saying that, 10 days ago, if we'd have stopped playing when it became prevalent that were going to be many matches called off after the first few, that we should have had this, this fire break or whatever they're calling it. I mean, where do you see, because I know the Premier League are meeting tomorrow, where do you see, personally, what direction do you think this is going in? Because, we're backed up with tournaments, especially with AFCON coming up for the African players, and as well with this variant that they're saying is not very, not as dangerous as the last, but we're now backing up games further and further, which could start going, affecting the World Cup for everybody in Qatar. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, I think first and foremost, we can never get past, the life and death situation. It's just too critical. I think it's too important. And unfortunately, as important and as vital as football is to us, it has to take second place. And if we have to cancel a few breaks and we need a fire break, I don't think that's a bad idea with where the infection rates are going. Again, we always ask people to be sensible. Look, there's been this massive outbreak, and it's no coincidence. It is around Christmas. There are going to be parties. People are going to go out. People are going to mix, and the infection rates will go through. I think the one big thing at the moment that I would say, just off the back of that, is the fact that I'm not sure that we are getting the hospitalizations and there are the deaths that we did this time last year. And I think this Omicron variant is, for a lot of people, I think it seems as though it's very, very transmissible, but it's not really doing too much damage. So that's the only thing that I think the experts have got to take into consideration and make a decision that is far more, way ahead of what I would know, in a sense of what the data is and what the stats are. But it does look as though we're heading for some sort of fire break, whether it's in around Christmas or just going into the new year.
Yeah, I thought Jonathan Pearce spoke a lot of sense. I don't know if you saw his interview on the BBC shortly after the Villa-Burnley game was called off yesterday lunchtime. But JP said that, in his opinion, and I agree with him totally, if they'd called the games off this weekend, as soon as that midweek fixtures had finished on Thursday night, it would have given us a 10-day break leading into Boxing Day. And that would have been the sensible thing to have done. The fact is, it wasn't done. And was it a coincidence that the 4 games that went ahead were all selected for Sky? I don't know. But, Chelsea had a really good argument for not playing their game, I think, with the number of players they had out. And I think what's annoying from a fan's perspective is that the games are getting called off late in the day. And if you're travelling, you're not going to get recompense for your hotel or your train fare or anything like that. But if the point I was going to make was that if, they need to basically give people more notice if they're going to call games off. Mm-hmm. So what they should be saying also is that we call a game off if there are X number of players that can't play, and we don't know what that number is. So Chelsea had 9 players out, but they had to play. So what is the number? And there needs to be more transparency in that respect, I think. But I would call them off on Boxing Day and the Norwich game, and then start again on New Year's Day or something like that.
Well, I'll come to you in a second, Aaron. Yeah, I mean, Teresa Baker again has made a great point. She said the English Premier League must set a criteria for a postponement. It's, I think they're going to be forced tomorrow. I think they'll be forced into it because, like I say, the situation is now so out of hand that you're going, it will affect every single aspect of supporting and playing. But the support structure around with I know people won't be crying for the TV companies, but it's the Premier League is absolutely massive. Aaron, anything to add to that?
Nothing that you guys haven't echoed, really. I have to agree with Ian completely. I'd just postpone it probably to New Year for me. You give it that 14 day circuit breaker. There we go.
You're not going to worry anyway, mate. You got tickets for the first day at the Brisbane Test, didn't you? you don't care about whether the football goes on or not.
I'm not going to say too much, but I might have some tickets for a certain series going on at the moment, but not like I want to watch it at the moment because we're getting battered anyway. But
I know. Fellas, this is our last show until the 2nd of January, where we'll come back to hopefully discuss the games against Spurs, Norwich and West Ham. Our Christmas presents to you guys. We're nothing. We can sit here and ramble, but if there's no one to interact with us, it'll make it pretty pointless. And the interaction is growing week by week on various platforms. But our Christmas present to you guys is a 2-part. The first part is going to be released on the 24th of December. And like I said before, we were trying to nick a sort of half hour to an hour off of Steve, and we've been told that we might get some one-word answers and everything, but honestly, it was an amazing. It was 3.5 hours. We had 50 questions. We asked 15, and we just sometimes couldn't get a word in edgeways. If it wasn't Steve just carrying on, talking and talking and talking, it was Nick's dog barking because there's 3 adults in the room. So Greg behind the scenes has had to edit this right down. So, but the great part is that if you'll see these 2 parts, we'll put a tweet or use social media to tell you about the second part coming out. But the first part is the 24th. But if there are obvious questions left there, it will be for obvious reasons, either for sound difficulties or the dog barking or the dog playing, or just where we took breaks at certain places. So he has said that when he comes back from Singapore, we will be doing a part 2. So all the questions that you think we may have obviously missed out, we won't have. So yeah, I mean, it just leaves me to thank Ian. Thanks for everything you've done this year. It's been emotional, and we will one day spend a game together. Aaron, our second show together. Thanks, mate. All the way from Brisbane. Enjoy the weather. We've not
Melbourne, mate. Melbourne.
Oh yeah. Well, you're still warmer than us. I can assure you that. And John, for taking the time out from your life to get involved in our show and to make this a bit of a belter for us. We appreciate it, and thanks for sharing your memories and also your experience on how you think that things will go for us. So it just leaves me to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a prosperous New Year, and a safe one. And if you can't be safe, just get massively drunk, but just be nice to each other. And if you can't, be nice, or you can be nice, just help someone else who might need it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy Christmas. Stay safe. Bless you all.
Happy Christmas, everybody.